Welcome back to the Behavior Code, the show where we try to figure out why we do the things we do. I'm Maria, and with me, as always, is Gabriel.
Hey everyone, good to be here.
So, Gabriel, I've been chewing on this one big question lately, and I wanted to just throw it out there to start. Why do some people consistently operate at a higher level than everyone else? I mean, what is actually going on inside their heads?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's so easy to just say, oh, they're talented or they got lucky, but that's such a surface-level answer. Today, we're going deep. We're talking about the whole psychological stack, the mindset, the habits, the emotional patterns, and maybe most importantly, the internal drivers that separate the good from the truly exceptional.
Exactly, the internal drivers. Because you meet these people, and I know you have too, who just seem built differently. You know that feeling? Like their engine is just fundamentally different from most people's.
Totally. Built differently is the perfect way to put it. It's like their default setting is just a few notches higher on the intensity dial. And today, we're going to try to get under the hood and figure out how that machine actually works.
So, where do we even begin with that? For me, I think it has to start with identity, with this core idea that high achievers, they see themselves as capable before they actually do the thing.
The identity first mindset, right.
Yeah, it's not I'll feel like a leader when I get the promotion. It's I am a leader, therefore I will act in a way that leads to that promotion. The action follows the identity, it's not the other way around. Most people wait for the external world to give them a title before they give themselves permission to embody the role. High achievers give themselves the permission first. They don't need a business card that says CEO to start thinking like one. They embody the identity, and the universe rearranges itself around that new reality. It's a fundamental belief that they are the creators of their circumstances, not a product of them. It's such a subtle but profound shift.
It's a critical distinction, and it ties directly into this concept from psychology called locus of control. It's essentially about where you believe the power in your life resides. Do you believe it's outside of you, in fate, luck, or other people? That's an external locus. Or do you believe it's within you? That's an internal locus of control, which is, a fancy psych term.
For feeling like you're in the driver's seat.
Exactly. You're not a passenger in your own life. High achievers, almost without exception, assume 100% responsibility for their outcomes. If they succeed, it's on them. If they fail,
It's still on them. It's a learning opportunity. It's data. It's not a verdict on their worth as a person.
precisely. There's none of this, oh, the market was bad, or my boss doesn't like me, or the algorithm changed. Those are all external factors. The high achiever's mindset is relentlessly internal. It's always, okay, that happened. What was my role in it? What could I have done differently? How do I adapt? They own it all, and that ownership, ironically, is what gives them all the power. Because if you're the cause of the problem, you can also be the source of the solution. You're not a victim of circumstance, you're an agent of change.
Which is just so, it's the complete opposite of the mindset so many of us fall into, which is this state of waiting. Waiting for permission, waiting for inspiration to strike, waiting for someone to discover you, or for the conditions to be perfect.
Or waiting for external validation. I'll feel confident once I get the award. I'll feel like a success when I hit this revenue number. The high achiever, they generate their own validation. They decide they are worthy, and then they go and do the work. They have an internal scorecard while most people are playing to an external one.
Yeah, their inner operating system is just coded for proactivity instead of reactivity. So if that's the operating system, what's good the software they're running? I think it has to be about focus. It feels like these people have a superpower for tuning out the noise. Internal versus external scorecard. I love that. The external scorecard is what other people think of you. It's your job title, your salary, the likes on your post. The internal scorecard is your own measure of effort, integrity, and progress. High achievers are obsessed with their internal scorecard, which is why they can keep going even when nobody is watching or applauding.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just focus in the sense of, not scrolling Instagram while you work. It's a deeper kind of focus. It's the ability to get into what psychologists call a flow state, almost on command.
Right, that magical feeling where time just disappears and you're so absorbed in what you're doing that your sense of self just melts away. It's not just that they find that state by accident. They seem to engineer their lives and their work to make it happen as often as possible.
Totally. And a huge part of that is something that might sound a little intense. I call it productive obsession.
Ooh, productive obsession. I like that. Unpack that for me.
It's when their passion for something, a problem to solve, a skill to master, a business to build, it becomes this all-consuming driver. But it's not a burden. It's not work in the traditional sense. It's just what they do. It's the thing that pulls them out of bed in the morning. They aren't pushing themselves forward with sheer willpower. They're being pulled forward by a mission.
That makes so much sense. So it's not really about having more discipline than everyone else. It's about having a stronger why that makes the discipline almost irrelevant.
A much, much stronger why, which in turn makes it incredibly easy for them to say no. High achievers are ruthless, absolutely ruthless, at eliminating noise. They protect their cognitive bandwidth like it's a finite, precious resource. Because it is.
I mean, just think about it. How many notifications, emails, quick questions, and pointless meetings does the average person deal with in a day? It's death by 1,000 paper cuts for your attention. These top performers, they just don't play that game. They have their 4-hour deep work block, and the world can burn for all they care. Nothing gets in.
Nothing. They understand that divided attention is not really attention at all. It's just cognitive confetti. But okay, let's pivot to the emotional side of this. Because you can have the best identity and focus in the world, but if you crumble under pressure, it's all for nothing.
This is a huge one. I think high achievers have a fundamentally different relationship with discomfort, a much, much higher tolerance for it.
100%. They're willing to sit with the frustration, the boredom, the feeling of not being good at something yet.
Yet, that's the key word, isn't it? They understand that all growth, every single bit of it, happens on the other side of that uncomfortable feeling. So while most people are wired to seek comfort and avoid pain, they're actively seeking productive challenges that will make them uncomfortable.
Right? And that ability is directly tied to delayed gratification. The power to sacrifice the pleasure of the now for a much bigger, more meaningful reward later. They can resist the easy dopamine hit of checking their email for the deeper satisfaction of finishing a difficult chapter of a book.
And what about stress? Because they obviously face immense pressure.
This is my favorite part. I think most of us see stress as this purely negative thing to be avoided at all costs. But high performers, they have this incredible ability to reframe it. They adopt a stress as fuel mindset.
Stress as fuel. So they're not avoiding it, they're using it?
They're using it. They reinterpret the physiological signs of stress, the racing heart, the adrenaline, the sweaty palms, not as signals of panic, but as their body and mind getting ready for action. It's activation energy. It's the feeling of being alive and engaged.
So it's not that they don't feel pressure, it's that they welcome it and channel it.
They channel it, which is also why they recover so much faster from setbacks. It's not that they don't get knocked down, they do, all the time. But their bounce-back time is incredibly short. Failure is data, not a disaster. Their emotional resilience is a muscle they've trained relentlessly.
Okay, so we have the internal operating system, we have the focus, and we have the emotional resilience. But how does this translate into daily action? Let's talk about habits and discipline.
Right? The practical application.
Yeah, and what I see is that it's rarely about these heroic, intense bursts of effort. It's almost always about small, ridiculously consistent actions, micro habits that compound over time. They understand that consistency is so much more powerful than intensity.
Yes! It's the person who writes 500 words every single day, not the person who tries to write a 10,000-word chapter once a month and then burns out. But it's more than just habits, I think. It's about systems thinking.
Systems thinking? What do you mean by that?
High achievers don't just rely on willpower to make good choices. That's exhausting. Instead, they design environments and structures that make success the path of least resistance. They make it almost automatic.
Oh, like if you want to work out in the morning, you lay your gym clothes out the night before. You're removing friction.
Exactly, but on a much grander scale. They automate their finances, they meal prep on Sundays, they block out their calendars weeks in advance, they delete social media apps from their phone when they're on a deadline. They build systems to protect them from their own worst impulses.
Which leads to a kind of controversial idea I've been thinking about, that maybe self-discipline is overrated.
I love it. Tell me more.
Well, we celebrate discipline like it's this ultimate virtue, but if you're constantly fighting yourself, constantly using willpower, you're probably going to lose eventually. The real winners, the high achievers, they don't have more discipline. They just need to use it less because their structure and systems do the heavy lifting. Structure is way, way underrated.
That's brilliant. You're not fighting the current, you're building a dam to redirect the river. Which actually brings us to an interesting point, the social element. Because none of this happens in a vacuum.
No, it doesn't. And this is another area where high achievers are incredibly intentional. They curate their social circle like a museum curator chooses art for an exhibition.
Right. You've heard the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. They don't just hear that as a nice quote, they treat it as an operational manual for their life.
They really do. They seek out people who challenge them, who are playing a bigger game, who hold them to a higher standard. They understand what I've heard called the expander effect.
The expander effect.
Yeah, when you surround yourself with people who are doing the things you want to do, it stretches your own identity. It makes your ambitious goals seem, well, normal, possible. It just subtly raises your own ceiling of what you believe you can achieve.
And the flip side of that is that they are just as intentional about who they don't spend time with. They actively distance themselves from cynicism, from complaining, from people who are stuck in a victim mentality.
Which can be tough. It can be lonely. And it's why high achievers often feel misunderstood in average environments. Their obsession is seen as weird. Their discipline is seen as antisocial. Their optimism is seen as naive.
It's the classic crabs in a bucket phenomenon. When one crab tries to climb out, the others pull it back down. High achievers have to be strong enough to just keep climbing, even if it means leaving some people behind.
Okay, but we can't just paint this rosy picture. This all sounds amazing, but there is a dark side to this psychology, right? There has to be.
Oh, a massive one. It's the necessary counterpoint to this whole conversation.
The drive that fuels success can so easily curdle into something toxic. I'm talking about crippling perfectionism, burnout from the self-imposed pressure, the inability to ever switch off or celebrate a win because the goalposts are always moving.
And the biggest trap of all, in my opinion, is the identity trap.
Which is?
It's when your self-worth becomes completely and utterly tied to your performance. I am my achievements. So when you have a failure, which is inevitable, it's not just a project that failed. You are a failure. It becomes an existential threat.
That's a terrifying way to live. So what's the solution? How can achievers stay ambitious without self-destructing? How do they walk that tightrope?
It comes down to self-compassion, which sounds soft, but it's actually the most high-performance tool there is, and it's about separating the self from the behavior. My strategy failed is very different from I am a failure. Healthy achievers are great at attaching to the process, but detaching from the outcome. They love the work, but their core sense of self is not on the line with every single project.
Love the process, detach from the outcome. That's a great mantra. Maybe we can make this more concrete with a couple of examples. Can you think of a well-known high achiever who really embodies these psychological patterns we've been talking about?
You know, the person who immediately comes to mind is someone like Rich Roll, the endurance athlete and podcaster.
Oh, great example.
I mean, here's a guy who completely transformed his identity in his 40s, From an overweight, out-of-shape lawyer to one of the fittest men on the planet. That's a textbook identity shift. He decided, I'm a healthy person, I am an athlete. First you, and then his actions followed.
And the productive obsession is obvious. You can't do what he does in endurance sports without it. Plus, his whole life is a system designed to support that identity. His diet, his training schedule, everything.
Exactly. And for a more personal example, I think about a listener who wrote in a while back. She was a software developer who taught herself to code at night while working a full-time job and raising 2 kids. She built systems, waking up at 4 a.m. to have 2 hours of protected deep work time. She had a high tolerance for discomfort, being tired, feeling like she was failing. And she curated her circle, joining online communities of other female coders who expanded her sense of what was possible. She embodies every single one of these principles.
Wow, that's incredible. It just shows these aren't abstract theories. This is how it works in the real world. Okay, so we're almost out of time. Let's bring this all home. For someone listening right now who wants to start cultivating this psychology, what's the first practical step?
For me, it starts with taking radical ownership. For 1 week, just one, try to eliminate all blame and excuses from your vocabulary. Every time something doesn't go your way, ask yourself one question. What is my role in this, and what can I do about it? That shift alone, from external to internal locus of control, is life-changing.
That's a powerful one. I'll add this. Start treating your attention like it's the most valuable currency you have. Pick one, just one, important task for tomorrow. Block out 60 minutes on your calendar to do it. And in that 60 minutes, turn your phone off, close your email, no interruptions. Just experience what it feels like to give one thing your undivided focus. It's a muscle, and that's your first rep.
Great advice. So, own your outcomes and protect your focus. That's the starting point for unlocking this inner operating system.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for tuning in to The Behavior Code. We'll be back next week to talk about the psychology of charisma. Can it be learned?
Ooh, that's a good one. I have some thoughts on that. Until then, take care, everyone.